Hello everyone, how are you all? This is Nikita and here I am with a new video on requester types in Pega. So yes, there are a lot of topics to be covered in Pega itself, but since we have started our development journey in Pega already, so it's also equally important to know something about how requester types work in Pega, what are the different kind of requesters, what happens when other systems tries to connect to our application, how do we trace them, and all the admin related stuff. So I thought it's best to start with the basic. What are the different requester types in Pega and how do we identify each one of them? So let's start. And what are the content of this particular video? We'll discuss first. So yes, in this particular video, we will discuss about what is a requester, okay, and what are the different types of requester in Pega, which we will cover one by one. What is a browser requester type, then app requester type, batch requester type, async processor requester type, and finally portal requester type. All of these requester types we will understand what each one is, and then we will go to admin studio and see how can we identify each requester types. Okay, so let's start with first what is a requester. So requester is anything, or it can be called an entity which tries to access our system, which tries to connect to our system through a requester. Like they will be called a requester which is requesting our system. Okay, so that's what requester is. And then what are the different kind of requester types in Pega? Because for each particular task which that requester does, we have classified them into different types. Okay, so there is a browser requester type, app requester type, batch, async processor, and portal requester type. So first let us understand what is a browser requester type. So we can access Pega through browser, right? So when we access Pega through browser, when the end user accesses it through different web browser, it creates a browser requester type specifically for that purpose. Okay, so when I log into Pega, I would be assigned a browser requester type, and it would be unique for each person, right? So my requester type would be different, then some other person can log in to their browser, their requester type would be different. So it would be unique. Okay, so that's what it is. So it's a browser requester type. It starts with H, so you can identify that this is a browser requester type, and you see that it starts with an H. Okay, so that's it. Then we have app requester type. So when external system accesses Pega for any information or to update anything, okay. So we have also learned about different services, right? So we have created video on services. So service is basically when we have a service, some external application is trying to connect to our service or our application for something. Okay, so that time they would be assigned a requester type which would be a app requester type, because it is an external to Pega, right? So some external system is trying to access, so we need to differentiate them. So they would be assigned a app requester type, and it would start with letter A. So you can identify that this is particularly not like some internal processing. It is some external service, or some external service has created a requester type, and you can see that in your admin studio. Okay, and then we have a batch requester type. So Pega will do a lot of batch processing, right? So like agents, listeners, so all these are a kind of batch processing which is done inside Pega. So it is internal to the application, but since it is a batch processing, we name it differently. They would be called a batch requester type, and it starts with letter B. Okay, so that requester ID would start with letter B. So that would be a batch requester type. Okay. Now the next one is the async processor requester type. Okay, so after this job scheduler and queue processor were introduced in Pega, then they created a different requester type to identify them specifically. So they were called async processor requester type. Okay, their prefix was same as the batch one, which starts with letter B, and it's mostly used for job scheduler and queue processor. The last one is the portal requester type. It is basically a different web component altogether. Okay, this is used to process requests and generate dynamic content. So to identify it separately for a portlet kind of application, when whenever the request is made to display portlet application in browser through Pega, right? So then we create a requester of type portal which starts with letter P. Then we can identify that this is particularly different requester type altogether, okay, which is a portal requester type. So these are different requester types in Pega. Now let's jump into our application and we will see where we can find these different requester type, okay. So let's go to my application and I have to add admin studio in here so that I would be able to see that studio where I can find all the requester type, okay. Though you can see that here as well, let me show you. Go to requesters. At least you can see the different requester type. So as I told you, right, there are how many type of requester types are there. So you can see that async processor, portal, browser, batch and app. These are created by Pega already. So these are the different requester type, okay. But actual requesters we would see in admin studio. These are just requester type, which would have the different access group tied to that requester type. So as you can see that this async processor requester type has an access group as PRPC async processor, okay. So let's go to admin studio now. I think, yeah, I can find it because I added it into the access group. Okay, so you have to go to that particular access group where you are, and then you have to add the admin studio. Now let me switch to admin studio now. Okay, so we'll also create a video on admin studio separately, but today I'm just concentrated on requester types. So you have to go to resources and then you have to go to the requesters. Okay. Okay, so you can see all the requesters in here, okay. You can go to any specific node or all nodes as well. So now I just want you to show the different type of requester types, right? So these are the ones which are there currently. So browser, you can find these are the different requester IDs which are there particularly for this application, okay. So these are the browser application and you can see the operator ID. Basically it's my operator ID, okay, and the node which I am in and all the stuff related to it. So this is the browser requester type. It starts with letter H, okay. Now let's go to some other requester type. You can go to app and you can find some app requester types, okay. So there is no operator ID obviously, okay. These are some app requester type which had been created, but maybe it was not removed, okay. Now coming to the batch requester type. So these are the different batch requesters which are existent, which are currently there, okay. These may not be active, okay. When you want to see some active requesters, you have to go here and you can find the active requester. Mine is an active requester because I am using that particular requester ID, and batch one is also currently running. So this is also an active requesters. The others are inactive requester which had been created but has been accessed long back and currently it's not running, okay. So this is all about requester type, okay. In the next video we'll also understand about different operations you can do, okay. Let me tell you how you basically trace any requester. So suppose I know that this is my requester and I want to trace it, okay. You will not always, you will never trace your requester. You will normally trace some other requesters which are there in your application. But just for sake of understanding, what you have to do is you have to go to this three dot and you will have a lot of options here. So if you want to trace that particular requester, you can do it from here. Okay, then you can see the clipboard. Okay, basically whatever is going on into that application, what data is there in memory, all these you can see it through this particular page in Admin Studio. You can also terminate the requester. Suppose there is some problem that you don't want that particular requester to do something in your application, you can just go there and you can terminate it. When you terminate it, it stops. That requester is totally destroyed, and you will have to again create a request and create a new requester ID. So that's what it is. You can see the requester details in here. So a lot of the thing you can do it through this particular page. So this was all about requester type. Okay, so in the next video we will understand everything about Admin Studio, what all stuff you can do through it. So it's very powerful tool, and you can understand a lot of things through about your application through this particular studio. So that was it from my side today. We'll see you again in my next video. Till then, stay safe, take care, bye bye.